Just 45 minutes from attack. Bad memories. World Health Organization data shows the government has exaggerated the risk 131 times versus Hubei and 50 times versus a reliable projection of Italy deaths, now 10,000 at peak, likely to be 17,000 finally in Italy, equivalent to 10,000 UK deaths, given our lower death rate. We know what the real-world worst cases are: Hubei, purple, and Italy, green. We know that Italy's virus growth is rapidly declining, curlo. It is near or at peak. With 10,000 deaths, we can project a very reasonable estimate of 17,000 deaths out of 60 million people. At the UK death rate of 6% versus Italy's 10.8%, that would be 10,000 deaths in the UK. For the UK government's estimate of 530,000 deaths, 510,000 in the Imperial College report, to be accurate at our 6% death rate, Italy with its 10% death rate would have to be looking at 10.8 times 530,000 divided by 6 equals 954,000 deaths. Italy is at 10,000 deaths. Its curve is flattening. How likely is it that they will have 95.4 times their current deaths? If they're at peak, which they're close to, then double it to 20,000, treble it to 30,000, 5 times 50,000. To try to claim that we need to multiply Italy's 10,000 deaths by 5 would be absurd. In fact, given the trajectory of their curve, we anticipate that it's not even double at 17,000. But I presume even the most hardened skeptic understands that at peak, it goes down the other side with a similar number of deaths. So let's call it 3 times, so that we cannot possibly be accused of underestimating no matter what. That's 30,000 deaths in Italy. The UK government says that Italy must be at risk of 954,000 deaths for us to be at risk of 530,000 deaths. That's 30 times, 31.8 times, higher than the worst real-world, actual, right now event in the world. How can any reputable scientist or mathematician make such an outrageous claim? I suggest that they didn't, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you recognize the absurdity of the threat that you've been told is real. The virus is real. The threat has been grievously exaggerated. Does that sound familiar? To the older among us it should. A threat told to us in the media, an official report escalating that threat, media widely distribute a terrifying claim, necessary response to protect our people. Right now that looks like coronavirus is claiming lives worldwide. Imperial College report. 530,000 deaths in the UK, worst case. We must stay in our homes for our own safety. Lockdown, save the nurses, stay in your homes. Back then, it looked like Saddam Hussein poses a threat to the West. WMD, dodgy dossier. Saddam, just 45 minutes from attack. Mr. Blair, no choice but to act. Invasion, war. And so the Iraq War began. The dodgy dossier was later widely discredited, but by then it was too late. The war had already been implemented, and 17 years later, we are still at war. The same war. The current dodgy dossier is the Imperial College COVID-19 response team's impact of non-pharmaceutical interventions (NPIs) to reduce COVID-19 mortality and healthcare demand. It sounds so official, so authoritative, obviously prepared by experts in their field. Like the then Iraq, its infrastructure of concealment, deception and intimidation. It sounds so official, so authoritative, obviously prepared by experts in their field. The current dodgy dossier is the Imperial College COVID-19 response team's current report. Here's the list of experts for the COVID-19 report. There's a lot of them. I have no doubt they really are experts. Here's the opening paragraph of the report. The global impact of COVID-19 has been profound, and the public health threat it represents is the most serious seen in a respiratory virus since the 1918 H1N1 influenza pandemic. etc., etc., we conclude that the effectiveness of any one intervention in isolation is likely to be limited, requiring multiple interventions to be combined to have a substantial impact on transmission. I have no doubt they really are experts. Frightening stuff with a clear recommendation for multiple actions as advised by a very large team of experts. We'd be foolish to ignore them and say, yes, tell us, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope. What's going to happen? 510,000 dead in the UK, 2.2 million dead in the US, health systems overwhelmed on mortality. Does that sound familiar from your social media experience? We need to prevent overwhelm. Millions dead. There's no doubt the message got out there. Let's backtrack and summarize. A lot of very clever people said there's a very real risk requiring multiple actions, social distancing, lockdown, otherwise 510,000 dead in the UK, 2.2 million dead in the US, and health services will be overwhelmed. Now, we've already seen that 530,000, media 510,000 in the report, is absurdly exaggerated 30 times against the most troll-satisfying, pessimistic 30,000 deaths in Italy when they're currently at 10,000. We need 954,000 deaths in Italy at 10.8% to get 530,000 deaths in the UK at 6%, and they're at 10,000 deaths, at or near peak, the graph curling over, clearly fading. Good luck with that. So let's do a little what if. Here's the report as it could have been written. A long list of experts from the response team sat down to write a report. Their conclusion was alarming and may have been heartfelt and sincere. 10,000 dead in the UK, 13,610 dead in the US, health systems stretched but for a one-time crisis acceptable. If they'd published that report, I'd have said, my God, amazing. Thank heavens we have such skilled analysts working for the public good. 10,000 deaths UK, 13,600 deaths US. The US result is lower because the US has experienced 1.6% deaths versus our rather high 6%. The problem: would we have given up our liberty for 10,000 UK deaths, about a week's normal mortality, or 13,600 US deaths, 2 days normal mortality in the US? I'd have voted no, frankly. Sorry, but we lose 550,000 a year in the UK, 2.8 million in the US. We don't turn our societies upside down for 640,000 in heart disease, 599,000 in cancer, 169,000 in accidents, US figures for 2017. I'm sorry, but to shut it down for 10,000 UK deaths, 13,600 deaths in the US, not even close. Even at the 530,000 figure, I'd still personally shrug. World War I, we lost 700,000 soldiers in the UK for freedom. World War II, we lost 383,000 and 67,000 civilians for a one-off that was a very real threat to our nation, our way of life. I'd think twice before giving up our freedom. But to give up our freedom for 10,000 natural deaths, that would be an act of insanity. Maybe somebody else agreed. I get that at 530,000 deaths people were scared. I tend to shrug. But at 10,000, how many would have been scared? If someone decided not many, they only had to change the figures cited and the scale on that chart, so it all added up to 510,000 Britons and 2.2 million Americans. Conspiracy theory? No, just an observation. Disturbing fact, not conspiracy theory, that publication of 530,000 UK deaths is real. The report citing of 2.2 million US deaths is real, and I believe that Trump is extending lockdown in the US on that basis. And in the UK we are already in lockdown, full house arrest, open but enforced. I cannot believe that our immune system has been weakened so badly that the country that fought repeatedly to free Europe over the centuries has walked voluntarily into open prison because of a press conference. Not our physical immune system, but our mental one, which should, after WMD, have been so strengthened that our herd immunity to inventions and lies should have had reporters analysing the response team and comparing it to the real-world data within minutes. Well-informed journalists, had this been finance, would have already had the data at their fingertips. Finance houses would have analysed the data within minutes, and within half an hour the UK government would have been under pressure. The government would have backpedaled, and the chief medical officer would have been sacked at the very least, possibly facing charges of incitement of terror as a scapegoat to save the government. This is truly a personal nightmare. It's like living with the Emperor's Clothes, WMD, Orwell and Orson Welles' fake broadcast for good measure. And the worst part is, it's real. The memes are being daily repeated. Questioning the memes brings an aggressive response. Stay at home, save our nurses. My original video was threatened and reported because I pointed out that our immune system wins over the virus every time, regardless of social distancing or lockdown. That is fact, not for each human, but for the society. Even the COVID-19 response team recognizes that. Here's the official view of the virus. It goes up, it goes down, it goes away. Humans win every time. Social distancing and lockdown will have an effect, sure, but like every other choice in life, there's a price for that choice. Except here, we have no choice. To be forced into lockdown without a choice, I find grievously disturbing. To be forced into lockdown on a lie triggers horror and outrage. To watch an entire populace arguing for their voluntary incarceration is devastatingly saddening. You have the figures. If not, go to the World Health Organization and get your own figures. Do your own math. Do your own real-world comparison. Hubei, Italy, it's not rocket science. Thank you for listening or watching. I'm Andrew Mather, a 60-year-old Brit, mathematician, financier, technologist, husband, biker, pilot, healer, whatever. A bunch of stuff. Take care. Feel free to get in touch, andrew@peerlessreads.com or andrew@amather.com. Either should get to me.